Welcome to Season 2 of Frontline Fridays, brought to you by Ubik. I'm your host, Thurston, and this season, we're diving into what it really takes to lead on the front lines of retail and hospitality. Today's conversation is about one of the most important things a leader can do, deliberately building the next generation of leaders around you. My guest is Mike Love, Chief Retail Officer at Boot Barn, one of the most compelling growth stories in specialty retail. In 8 years leading stores, Mike has overseen the opening of more than 300 locations and built an internal leadership pipeline on one consistent principle: develop people before they're ready. Mike spent close to 4 decades moving through buying, planning, and operations at some of retail's most formative organizations before taking on the stores role. His journey is unconventional, but his perspective on leadership development is anything but that. Today, I'm going to get into what Mike calls Love's Law and what it really takes to develop leaders before they're ready, and why the best thing any leader can do is open a door for someone else. So let's get into it. Good morning, Mike, and welcome to Frontline Fridays. I am really excited about this conversation.
Thanks, Ron. Happy to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Pleasure. So this is, for us, just so people know, will be kind of step one of our relationship, because I'm also going to do some work for you for Boot Barn later this year and spend some time with your teams. So we're doing things together on both sides of the table here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. One of the highlights of our year is getting all of our store managers together. I know many retailers have kind of stopped doing that because of expenses, and certainly understand budgets are always a challenge, but we find it incredibly valuable to get everybody together and share best practices, learnings, new strategies. And so it's the highlight of our year.
I look forward to being there and meeting your teams and sharing retail pride. So let's jump in this kind of category that I wanted to open with, because you've been in the business for a while, and this idea of like deep industry fluency makes a great chief stores officer, great head of stores, great leader. And I fully believe in that. And so the idea of like understanding buying, planning, merchandising, store ops, design, all of it is such an important component to being a great head of stores, because you're also the educator often of how the business operates behind the scenes. So walk us through a little bit more about your background and how you grew up to be such a well-rounded expert in the business.
I had, I guess, what I would say for my time frame, a fairly typical start to my retail career. I came in through the training program at Federated Department Stores way back in 1985. It's scary to think it was that long ago. And that was at Foley's in Houston, Texas. And, you started on the sales floor, running a little area. I had men's dress shirts, neckwear, and the fragrance bar in the men's department. Then I moved into a buying office and spent a number of years there. Then I was fortunate enough to move into a corporate merchandising role where we influenced the development of the private label products and sold it into the operating divisions. So really my first foray into understanding how product gets built from the ground up, and had great opportunities to travel to Asia and work with factories and understand a little bit more about the manufacturing process. Then as I moved through, I at some point moved into planning and kind of, I've always had a little bit of a head for numbers. And so it was a natural outgrowth of kind of some of my innate gifts, and really thrived in that role at 4 or 5 different companies over a period of 15 or 20 years. And one day, nearly 9 years ago now, my CEO came to me and said, we need somebody to lead stores, and I think you're the guy to do it. And my exact line to him was, if you're crazy enough to let me, I'm crazy enough to try. To the heart of your question, Ron, did all of those prior experiences position me well? Certainly. Listen, I learned so much from so many people along the way. But at the same time, I don't want people to walk away from this conversation thinking that's the only path to being the head of stores for a great company like Boot Barn. Because I think there are many paths to success. And just because that was mine doesn't mean it needs to be someone else's. I've worked with great store leaders who spent their entire life in the field organization, and I've learned tremendous amounts from them. I think curiosity is a word that I'll probably use multiple times today. I think curiosity is key. I think curious people can learn even if they don't have a role that's directly teaching them something.
That's the beauty often of retail leadership. is that we all come and very much often a self-taught industry, and that you learn actually how to run stores by doing the work. I have actually a degree in retail management, which is crazy because I didn't know anything. I didn't have a retail degree, Ron. It's true. Yeah. And I don't even know what we studied. And then I studied fashion design because I wanted to understand the other side of the business. But the majority of people, and I'm sure you would agree, grew up in this business being self-taught, and by having great leaders around them who teach them how to be an entrepreneur and how to run a multi-million dollar four-wall business and everything it takes. And the beauty of our industry is that the experiences are very wide, as opposed to one degree that dictates one particular skill set and path. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. My degree is political science, right? I was a government major in college. I was going to go to law school and change the world. And hopefully I have had an impact on the world, but it certainly wasn't through law or politics.
I want to just jump into Boot Barn because under your leadership, if I have this correct, you've opened over 300 stores when you took over, and to a current fleet of over, I think, close to 800. What was that journey for you? Because opening hundreds of stores is a massive undertaking, and the infrastructure to build that requires a lot of work. So, like, take us through the last several years for the company.
Yeah, so we've grown by about 300 stores in the last 6 or so years. Kind of coming out of COVID, we ramped up our rate. We're only at 555, so I like the 800 number. We've said we want to get to 1,200, so we're going to keep pressing.
You have publicly said that. Yes, you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's easy to share if we've said it publicly. Opening stores at this rate is certainly a challenge, but it's certainly not me alone in any way. It of course takes a great team, and we're blessed with that at Boot Barn. I've got great partners on the real estate and construction side. And I think the key to a great partnership with real estate and construction is communication, because things happen in a new store process, whether it's holdups with leases. That happens early on. It doesn't always affect ops a whole lot, unless it puts the opening in an awkward slot on the calendar. Permitting issues, construction issues when you're in that last few weeks and something doesn't go right. And, we got people booked to fly in and set up a store, and all of a sudden the date moves and somebody's got a wedding and somebody's got a vacation. And I think one of the things that we did that has allowed us to grow at this rate with a minimum of chaos, because there's occasionally some chaos when you open 80 stores over here,
Of course.
is about 7 years ago, we were single threaded through one gentleman on our team who led every new store opening. He was on site for every new store opening, but we were open 10, 12, 15 stores a year in those days, and he could do that. And as we ramped up the pace, we made a conscious decision. I could have hired 2 or 3 more people like him and had 3 or 4 leaders, and that would have been our limiting factor. Instead, we chose to train hundreds of partners in the 3 or 4 key leadership roles that it takes to open a store. And I think that's given us maximum flexibility to open. I think most we've opened in 1 week is 6. Couldn't have done that with 3 or 4 leaders, because you need somebody on site. As important as that's been to our opening cadence, I think the opportunities it's given our team to grow outside their own 4 walls is at least as valuable, because they've gotten outside of their 4 walls. They've had to build a team in the moment we open a store today in 6 days. The store turns over to store ops on a Wednesday. We do the punch walkthrough with the GC, and on Thursday, the merchandise trucks arrive. And we tend to open on Tuesday morning at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's a very compressed 6-day process. Our typical store is 12,000-ish square feet. So that's a lot to put together in 6 days. But we've trained thousands of partners, and they come in and they build a cohesive team from disparate stores and assign tasks and get it done and build a beautiful store in 6 days. And I think it's a really fun process. I don't go to every one. There's just too many. But whenever I get a chance to be in a store sometime in that 6 days, I learned something from the team.
And you're right. We have to build the strategy around the scale at that pace. It requires a new way of thinking all the time. Well, what if we tried this? What if we did that? And it sounds like that's exactly what you've done is one person can't handle it. We don't need 3, we need 30 or 50.
Yeah. And I also think those jobs, and I know there are companies that do it that way still, they're tough jobs. They're jobs that burn people out. If you're on the road, I'm on the road a lot. I know you have been in your life as well. But man, if you're on the road 60, 80 weeks a year opening new stores, that's a rough life. You're just going to chew people up and spit them out. And that's never a good strategy.
I want to jump into your own leadership. When we first met, you shared this idea of Love's Law and what this is. And, I've coined many phrases of my own. So I really appreciate that you can use your name in calling it Love's Law. But tell us what that is and what it means to you.
Yeah, so Love's Law is something I developed kind of early in my career. I think I was an assistant buyer in the department store world at the time, and I've always been ambitious. I'd be lying if I said anything else. And so I always tried to study people that achieved success in whatever their chosen field. I don't care if you're a great athlete, I don't care if you're a great business leader, if you're a great community leader, whatever it is, because the funnel gets narrow as you go up an organization. And you could take, I used to always sit there and say, okay, there's 6 GMMs. How come one of them rises to be the CEO and the other 5 don't? Because on paper, they all look equally qualified. So I was always looking for what it was that made someone special, that drove their success. And I think Love's Law was an outgrowth of that study, because I said, well, what makes you good at your job today is what gets you promoted. But then as I began to get a promotion here or there, I realized that the skill that made me successful at my last role wasn't the skill that was going to make me successful at my next role. That was a little bit of a rude awakening, right? Like, well, I've been a great assistant buyer, so I'm going to be a great buyer. Well, those are completely different skill sets. You go from being really detail oriented as an assistant buyer, getting all the little things right, the pricing, the color, the delivery dates, the allocation in those days, because there weren't allocators in those days. That was you. So those details are really, really important to a successful retailer. But picking product and understanding what's going to work is a completely different skill set. So I got promoted for being detail oriented, and now I got to be a great stock picker. And so I kind of built that Love's Law that says for every role, there's a skill set that's really, really important. And it's not the one that made you successful at the prior one. And I've kind of continued to believe that. At first, I only saw it through the lens of the buying organization, because that's where I was. And over the last 8.5 or so years, I've seen that it applies to the field organization just as easily.
Well, and I would say the one role, which is maybe the most obvious in that, is often the district manager. It is saying, as someone that say, I was a very successful store manager and I had a great store visit one time, and 2 weeks later I was a district manager with 10 stores, no idea what I was doing. And you're exactly right. I was not a 10 store manager. I now needed to develop an entirely new skill set, and some Love's Law certainly applies in that world. Would you agree?
Oh, totally. I think, you go from a circle of control that's very, very powerful in your store. You know everything that's going on in those 4 walls, and you impact everything. And then you become a district manager. You've got 10, 12. Listen, I talk to district managers who have 20 stores in retailers today. You're not there every day. You can't see what's going on, but it's your role to influence and guide and shape what's going on. And that's a different leadership skill and a different style. Requires a completely upgraded skill set.
And thinking then too about kind of the next generation of leaders and the skills they're developing in retail, and to become district managers and take your role and beyond in the future. So you think about this industry and the importance of leaders, having great leaders around you, to build you and move you forward. And that must give you such joy. As you've grown this organization, I can just imagine the dozens of people that credit you, hundreds that credit you for their growth. And that must feel great.
I hope that's true. I learned about 20 years ago that I do get my joy there now, Ron. I went through some leadership development at a couple of different organizations. I had a boss tell me, "Oh, you're a teacher." And I'm like, "I'm not a teacher. I'm the last thing about being a teacher." I hated to admit it later on, but I figured out he was right. And I love helping other people succeed today, right? I've been blessed in my career, in my life, and I've achieved whatever I've achieved, and I'm thrilled to have done that. And today, I want to make sure I give other people the opportunities that somebody gave me. And I think it's the little things. I think it's I'll come back to a couple of words several times probably today. Engage and be curious. And engaging could look a lot of different ways. I walk into a store now and I think I'm the most approachable guy in the world. I think I'm the most low-key guy in the world. But I walk into a store and I realize that people in that store think I'm this, I'm something because I have a job title. But I don't believe I'm any more important than them, and I need to connect with them. But those that are afraid to engage with me maybe are afraid to engage with our customers. And so I look for that engagement. That's when I can tell somebody's got what it takes to be successful. And if they're curious about learning things outside of their scope, that's another signal to me that this person's worth investing in, right? And whether that's getting them some additional training, getting them a promotion so they can spread their wings and try and do more, getting them some mentoring, whether it's one-on-one from me or whether I ask a district manager or a regional vice president to step in and take this person under their wing and help them continue to grow. Because we need leaders. One day I'm not going to be doing this, and somebody needs to step up and continue this legacy that Boot Barn's been building for almost 50 years.
Well, and I can tell just listening to you, using the words curiosity, that I would imagine on a store visit, and I hope you and I get to do this together, that you are very curious. I imagine you ask a lot of questions.
I think I've been described as a 3-year-old. You did that? Why?
But that curiosity then returns curiosity too, right? You're demonstrating the skills you want to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great leadership. And if I have this correctly, it says nearly half of your district managers came from store managers, and 100% of them, 100% of your regional VPs over 8 years were internal hires. So give us kind of the landscape of that district manager population and the fact that they, significantly came from running their own stores.
Partly, I think Boot Barn is a little bit of a niche market, right? We're in Western boots and apparel and work boots and apparel, and people have a love for that. Maybe somebody was looking for a job when they found us, but if they stay more than a year or two, they find that they've fallen in love with the lifestyle as well. There's a lot of product-specific, industry-specific knowledge that's required, whether that's shaping a cowboy hat or understanding the needs of a work boot. And so I think people on the inside are uniquely qualified. They've already built that foundation, but they've also built credibility within the organization. They built partnerships within the organization. It motivates others who are ambitious to say, hey, I don't have to leave to get a promotion. And so I strongly believe that internal promotes are important. At the same time, there's a danger of getting to groupthink if all you do is promote internally. So I like this balance we have on our district manager team of half internal promotes, half external hires. It gives us a nice balance because we can learn. There are many great retailers out there. I've got people on our district manager team who came from Bath and Body Works, from the Banana Republic Group, from Francesca's, from many, many retailers, and they've all brought something to the table that we learn from, and they all bring a perspective that we need to continue to grow. And at the regional level, we've been blessed to have a district manager team that is very skilled and very professional. I've had the opportunity in the last 8 years to promote 3 people into that role, and I decided it was disrespectful to the district manager team to post those jobs externally. I have a great team of district managers. If my next regional director is not there or regional vice president is not there, that's on me, that I didn't develop. It's not that I didn't have the great clay to work with. We've stayed internal there.
And what a great recruiting tool for those outside candidates that you want to bring in. That it's often in some of the statistics, even your research that UBIC has done that I've referenced over the years is, what one of the primary reasons people leave a company or even our industry overall is because they don't see a pathway to growth. And if someone comes to Boot Barn and says, let me just tell you, this many district managers came from running their own stores. These many store managers entered in as sales or assistant managers. And like statistically, when you're recruiting and you can share those stories, it's I believe, one of the primary reasons someone will choose to join you, because they see a path for the future in an industry that is, again, self-taught and requires you, like, hard work and success often gets you to next. Congratulations on that. It's really great to watch. The other program I want to just dig into is this idea of how you support local communities. And you had shared, how you invest in established cities where you have a significant store count. You go into a new city, what you do. And I think some people do this behind the scenes, but you're very vocal about how Boot Barn supports local communities. And I would love for you to share more about that.
We want to be good members of our communities, right? Our communities support us. It's how we're able to open stores. It's how we're able to grow. And it only feels right and logical to reciprocate. We've done that for many years, and mostly through sponsoring local events. And most of those events are Western in their nature. They're rodeos or county fairs. And they run the gamut from the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas, the 10-day Super Bowl of rodeo, so to speak, down to a local Lions Club sponsored rodeo in Jasper, Texas. The financial commitment behind those two things is very different. I would argue that the impact per dollar is greater in Jasper because it's so localized. I think it pays dividends in many ways. I think the store partners love that we invest in their community. They're a member of the community. They're proud of where they live. And to see their company support that just reinforces their commitment. And I think as we're opening new stores, we've been known to go in and sponsor events before our stores open to get our name out there. And certainly there's benefit to us. This isn't purely altruistic. I'd never be foolish enough to say that. We could invest that money other ways, but we choose to be a part of the community and things that are important to them. I have a small team that manages that. As we're opening a store, we do some prep calls, of course, like anybody else would. But one of the things we ask the local team is, what are the events in your community that we should be a part of? And we let them guide us, because I don't know what's going on in Millville, New Jersey. I've never lived in Millville, New Jersey. I need somebody to tell me so I can put my money where the community cares.
Well, and think about the loyalty that's building on two sides, from your customer and from your internal team.
Absolutely.
It's like just the power of what you describe. And yes, there's potentially a financial return on money spent, but emotionally, and when you think about loyalty and you think about commitment and you think about turnover and brands like yours that are always interested in acquisition and retention, and all of that just goes together. I'm actually surprised I don't hear more of these stories in the industry, but I love yours and why you do it, and the intention behind it.
I think it's easier for someone who serves a niche market. I think Lululemon's another great example of someone who's done this really well, right? But I think when you get broader, right, when you're a broader appeal retailer, maybe you struggle to find your wheelhouse to do it. But I think there's ways to do it for those people. I think you find a cause. There are thousands of worthy causes out there, and you just stand for something. And if you stand for something and you invest in it, people will appreciate it.
Absolutely agree. And the benefits are long term for years to come.
I'll give a shout out to a prior employer. Kohl's had Kohl's Cares for years, right? And they sold very inexpensive books and toys that then they took that money and supported it to help local communities and predominantly children's charities. So I think there are companies out there that are broad mass retail companies that have figured that out.
Amazing. At scale, as one of the largest private sector employers, as a retail industry, 55 million people, if we have the ability to make an impact on people's lives, then it's our responsibility in some ways too. So thank you for doing what you do. So I want to spend the last couple of minutes here of thinking about what other retailers or people can do, listening to you and the success you've had at Boot Barn. One of the programs that you had referenced to me was called Level Up. And so I want to think about sharing a few details of what that means, because it sounds like something other brands could be inspired by.
Yeah. Level Up's a program that we probably put in place about 4 or so years ago. And trading in retail has always been an interesting dilemma, right? It's hard to fund the training hours, get somebody off the floor and invest in their development. But a trained employee is a better partner to your store manager, to the customer, to the organization. So we set out to find a way to do this. And we have a learning management system that we utilize, and we can do training classes through it. So we kind of had those out there, and the usage was good, but not great. But we broke it up into a way that kind of created a roadmap for progression, right? And I think when people understand the path to success, they're more likely to get on it. So we created what we call, there's a level 1, which is, this is the basic training you need to be functional in your current role. And that's required. Everybody has to do level 1. And it's just the basic skills required. It's basic product knowledge. If you're a sales partner, those sorts of things. Then level 2 is self-taught. It's self-guiding. The classes are out there, but nobody's going to make you take them. If you want to do more, take level 2, and that begins to give you exposure to that next level. If you're a sales partner, it starts to show you what a key holder's responsibilities may be like and how they differ from your role on the sales floor, because sometimes you can't tell. If you're just standing on the sales floor and you're a customer, I don't know that Ron's a key holder and Mike's a sales partner, but Mike and Ron know, and maybe Mike doesn't understand why Ron's a key holder and he's not. So we try to give some exposure to that. And then level 3 is stretch assignments that say, now go put into practice what you learned in level 2. Show us that you've mastered those skills that it takes. If you can look at level 3 and say, wow, I've got 20 ASMs in this region who have finished level 3 and they're ready to be store managers. When you're opening 80 stores a year, 20 ready-made store managers is a gift. And people sometimes ask me what keeps me awake at night, and it's having the people ready to keep our growth going at the rate we're trying to do it. And we've been fortunate enough to do it. And I think Level Up is a piece of that. I think people sometimes say, oh, I don't have a learning and development team. Our learning and development team is a powerful team of 2. We don't have hundreds of people designing these programs. Our boot buyer records videos teaching them about boots. Our hat buyer records videos teaching them how to shape a hat. We tap into the knowledge base we have, and that team of 2 organizes it and structures it, and with input from myself and the other field leaders say, okay, that's a level 1 skill, that's a level 2 skill, that's a stretch skill. And we put it together, and is it perfect? Not even close. Is it better than what we were doing? 100%. And I think that's something that retail does well. Progress, not perfection.
Well, and the intention behind it too, of why and what, and the not everyone's going to level up long term. They may decide, you know what, I'm really good at doing what I'm doing, and moving into a leadership role may just not be what I need and want today. We also sometimes make assumptions everyone wants to move, and I've learned over years, as I'm sure you have, of like, someone that loves to sell, and give them more of the ability to do that. And they may not be your next district manager, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'd celebrate it, actually.
Absolutely. It's early in my career, went through some psychological testing. A company did this as they thought about moving you into different levels of management. And I was meeting with the psychiatrist or psychologist that had done the work. And he said, well, what do you want? I said, I want what everybody wants. I want my boss's job. He said, not everybody wants their boss's job. I said, let me be clear, I do.
Yeah. And look where you're sitting today. So what a joy to see that, come through. Just last couple of questions, as I'm sure you get asked this. I'm imagining you in store visits and having roundtables or breakfast with teams and so on. What are the questions you get asked most often, and how do you answer those?
We get a lot of questions, right? How long can we sustain this growth? Can we really get to 1,200 stores? And I believe we can. The funny story there is we've used a real estate consulting firm going back to the days when the private equity firm bought Boot Barn 15 years ago. They did a study, and the study said, well, yeah, you guys think you can get to 300 stores? We're not sure, but maybe. And then a few years ago, it was, well, you could get to 600 stores, maybe. And now the same real estate firm has agreed with us that we can get to 1,200 stores. So, can we really do it? I think so. I think we opened our first store in what I would consider the Northeast. Right before COVID, we opened a store in the suburbs of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And we probably all did it, with a little bit of our fingers crossed. And is it going to be different? Are we going to do a lot more work business and a lot less Western business? And oddly enough, we did more Western business because there was nowhere else to buy it. There were other places selling work boots and workwear, but we were the only game in town if you wanted a cowboy hat or a pair of authentic cowboy boots. And so we found that no matter where we go, our balance doesn't change a whole lot. We sometimes like to say cowboy doesn't mean you work on a ranch or a farm or ride a horse every day. It's an attitude and an outlook. It's a spirit of independence. It's a spirit of hard work and integrity. And those people exist everywhere. You know, we have a store just a few miles outside of Midtown Manhattan in Paramus, New Jersey, which does a terrific business in Western wear and hats. So I think there is an opportunity for us to grow. You know, some people ask us about international. Right now, we have so much growth domestically, we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it. I'm not sure that American cowboy culture translates internationally. Maybe it does. There's some markets where it might. And are we gonna continue investing in stores, right? That's a big one because so many companies, so many retailers today are putting all their focus on digital. And I think we have a world-class digital organization. We do all the things you would expect a retailer to do today. We do buy online, pick up in store. We do ship from store. We do ship to store. We can access our inventory, whether it's sitting at any of our 3 warehouses around the country or any of our 500 and some odd stores. We can access that for a digital customer or for an in-store customer at the push of a button. Our stores have 5 mobile handheld devices at a minimum in every store. Some of them have more than that. To be able to access that inventory as you're standing in the boot aisle with a customer who wants this boot in a different size or a different color. And you can immediately say, I can have that shipped to your home, or I can have that shipped to your store, to this store, and you can try it on. It'll be here in 3 days. So I think we have a world-class digital organization, but we're going to continue to invest in stores because partly I think people don't buy boots every day. Buying something online that you buy every day, I don't want to pick on you, Rod, but I bet that T-shirt, you probably own more than one version of that black T-shirt you're wearing.
You know me well enough. It's my standard for sure.
You could order that online. You probably wear a brand or two that you love, and you could order that shirt online. But if you needed a pair of cowboy boots, because I'm going to take you to the Houston Rodeo next March, you might want to come in and try them on. And we want to have that opportunity for everybody to get that experience. And people don't know how a cowboy boot's supposed to fit. And that's hard to communicate online.
Or a hat, same, not something you want to buy on a website. Want to come in and have that full experience.
Shaping a hat to your face and to your body style is important, and it personalizes it. And if you buy it online, it's going to come like it comes straight out of the box. And with a tea kettle and some YouTube videos, you could try and do it yourself, but you'll eventually end up at a hat store getting it fixed.
You're back at Boot Barn.
I hope.
It's funny. Well, Mike, this has been an absolute pleasure. You are, as a brand, one of the reasons why brick and mortar exists, to continue to give those experiences and develop teams and impact local communities. And all the things we love most about brick and mortar retail is exactly what you're doing. And I have high admiration for that. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation to be here today. And I'm looking forward to hearing you speak to our teams in September. I know they'll get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I look forward to it. Great, Mike. Thank you so much.
Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for listening. And what Mike was really clear about was what separates the leaders that people remember from the ones they simply reported to. And the answer was very consistent. The best ones invested in the people around them. So here's your challenge for this week. Think about one person on your team who's quietly ready for more. Have a conversation with them about where they want to go and identify the one thing you can do to get them closer to it. Because the leaders who shaped Mike didn't wait for a program or a budget. They just opened the door. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks to Ubik, the presenter of Frontline Fridays. Ubik is the AI-powered platform that helps retail and hospitality leaders connect, train, and empower their teams. Ready to make your frontline your competitive advantage? Visit Ubik.com. That's YOOBIC.com to learn more. Until next time, keep leading boldly and keep putting your people first.